They said no woman had ever mastered the iron fist without losing herself. They were wrong. In the heart of an ancient mountain temple, where stone courtyards carried the memory of 1,000 footfalls and the air was always a touch colder than it should be, a lone fighter stood barefoot on cold ground. Her hands were wrapped in simple cloth, not for protection but for restraint. The cloth looked ordinary, but it marked a choice, to limit what she could do, to keep power checked until it could be trusted. Her name was Mei Lin. Tonight, restraint would be removed. Iron Fist was not a style handed down at communal meals or taught to eager crowds. It was a discipline carved out of impact and patience, bone against stone, breath against pain, will against collapse. Mei Lin trained in silence for years. Silence wasn't ritual for ritual's sake, it was efficiency. Talking wasted breath, and breath was currency in this work. Each dawn she struck hardened wood, then stone, then iron plates cooled in mountain water. The pattern wasn't random. Wood taught rebound, stone taught consequence, iron taught control. Her knuckles split, her skin swelled and puckered. She wrapped them and continued. Pain was a teacher. It corrected sloppy posture, lazy alignment, hurried intent. Other students chased speed, lightning hands, flicker-quick combos. Others chased flexibility, limber angles, flowing evasion. Mei Lin trained consequence. Her strikes were rehearsals for decisions that couldn't be taken back. Each punch had to land once and end something. Missed strikes had a cost. The adversary remained standing, the opening closed, and the lesson deepened into the flesh. There's a misconception that Iron Fist is mere strength. It's not. It's purpose. You don't aim to blow an opponent across a yard. You aim to ensure they do not rise to strike again. To do that, you calibrate force to intention. You learn to let force follow structure, not let fury drive the motion. One winter night, when the courtyard breathed out white mist and the temple torches were little more than tired stars, the elders summoned Mei Lin. There was no ceremony, no speeches, only the simple, unadorned summons that meant judgment rather than celebration. Before her stood 3 senior fighters, the kind whose bodies told stories of old battles in the way their shoulders sat, and their eyes measured space. They were veterans of real combat. Their movements were precise and unforgiving. This was not a duel for glory. It was an evaluation. Can your training hold when someone else's life is in the balance? The first attacked fast, testing reaction rather than strength. He came at her like a snapping twig, quick, linear, designed to split timing. Mei Lin didn't retreat. She stepped into the strike. There's an oddness to meeting momentum with equal momentum. Most people expect recoil. Instead, she anchored, met his arm with the hardened plane of her fist. The sound was dull, final. He staggered back, the force taking his balance and, more importantly, his momentum. His arm hung useless at his side. His eyes widened, not from immediate fear but disbelief. He had tested many things. He had not tested absorption like this. The second fighter came low, sweeping for balance. He aimed to topple, to make space where there was none. Mei Lin pivoted, dropped her weight, and drove her fist downward. The strike met the earth as much as the man. Stone beneath her cracked. The elder's sweep was arrested. The sweep that ensures people fall in motion was stilled. These were not reckless blows. They were judgments rendered with minimal volume. The third paused. That pause told her everything. A pause before engagement is a question. Do you have more, or are you done? Mei Lin had trained to hear those silences. She had learned to fill them with the most economical answer possible. Control, not crescendo, defined her replies. When she moved, it was not to impress. It was to resolve. By the time the courtyard quieted, her fists trembled, not from weakness, but from the strain of power held long and deliberately. An elder stepped forward and spoke only 4 words, "The iron accepts you." The statement was simple, but its weight pressed into her like a newfound but settled armor. Iron Fist was never about raw, unbridled strength. It was about an intimacy with limits. Power without precision is just a hazard. Restraint without purpose is a cage. Mei Lin learned to marry the two. She slowed her breathing, lowering the heart rate machine that lives inside everyone who moves hard. Her stance lowered. Her wrapped hands loosened slightly, a release like a held note finding resonance. When she struck after that pause, it wasn't fast. It was inevitable. The difference matters. Speed is a party trick. Inevitability is a decision that arrives, whether the world is ready for it or not. Each blow landed once. Each opponent fell once, no repeated strikes, no excess. The discipline taught that after the first decisive contact, continuing is indulgence, not necessity. Her body had learned to place weight precisely where needed, the heel, the hip, the shoulder, a breathing out that aligned bone with intention. The temple's stone took more than some chips and fractures. It took proof. Her fists trembled because power that remained coiled too long must move eventually. That tremor was not a sign of loss. It was evidence of force restrained and then composed into a single, controlled declaration. Acceptance didn't bring peace. The world beyond the mountain did not care for ritual or ethics. Before sunrise, armored intruders breached the outer gates. Mercenaries, drawn by rumor and the promise of forbidden techniques, moved with confidence. Numbers, weapons, and swagger, that's usually what men like that bring. They assumed volume overwhelmed craft. Mei Lin walked alone to meet them. No announcements, no hesitation. The courtyard was lit by the cold light of pre-dawn, each mercenary a silhouette until they moved. The first attacker charged with the kind of rage that fills mouths with words and hands with weapons. She stepped inside the arc and struck. The fist hit the shaft mid-swing. Wood and metal split, logic severed. Weaponry depends on leverage and moment. When your opponent removes one, the rest is study. The third tried to flank her. He expected a scatter of motion, a flurry. Instead, Mei Lin turned, planted her foot, and released everything she had restrained for years. The strike unfolded like an answer to years of silence, precise, heavy, unstoppable. The impact echoed through stone, the moment after the sound stretched and the men stopped advancing. They had come prepared for chaos. Mei Lin gave them clarity. She did not chase those who fled. She did not gloat. There was no exultation because Iron Fist was never about domination. Its true aim is certainty, to make sure the threat is over, to ensure the next breath you or another takes is not preempted by violence. When it was over, the courtyard stood unchanged except for cracks where her fists had landed, hairline fractures in the stone like recorded punctuation. Mei Lin knelt. She rewrapped her hands slowly, the motion an old conversation with bandage and palm. She exhaled, a long breath that let go, not of the discipline she had built, but of the tension she had carried, knowing it could be called on. She did not celebrate. She did not hunt down the criminals who fled in the dark. That would be cheap spectacle. Instead, she walked the perimeter, checking the temple's edges, listening with the kind of attention that only those who've been close to sudden violence learn to value. Iron Fist was not about domination. It was about certainty. It was a tool for keeping the balance when the world tilted. The elders watched, their faces unreadable under torchlight. The students watched, some with envy, some with comprehension. Mei Lin's mastery was not a story to tell, as a threat or a trophy. It was a fact that rearranged assumptions. For a long time, stories had claimed no woman could master the Iron Fist without losing herself to rage or mania. Mei Lin's calm presence disproved that myth. She did not lose herself. She found a version of herself able to hold power and purpose in one hand. Later, people would come with different questions. How did she train? What is the line between control and suppression? Can anyone do what she did? The answers are practical and quiet. You practice slow impact and measured intent. You read your limits and push them incrementally. You learn to reserve force until the moment when impossibility is the only honest response. There's no glamour in it. There is labor, repetition, and a lot of mornings where you meet the wooden target and resume. The temple had its answer. Not a legend, not a warning, but a fact. The Iron Fist had found its master, and in the small way that matters, that fact changes how people on the mountain and beyond will think about power. It becomes less about who is loudest and more about who is steady when the moment demands steadiness. So when you imagine Mei Lin standing in that courtyard, barefoot on cold stone, hands wrapped like a promise to herself, remember the scene is less about spectacle and more about method. The cloth on her hands wasn't a prop. Her stillness wasn't a pose. The cracks in the stone weren't vandalism. They were punctuation marks.